Okay, we're going to still go back to incidents at the University of Missouri. We've covered pretty extensively some of the things that were mentioned. The ghetto band was mentioned, of course, community work, Big Brother, Big Sister program, participation in some with the people who participated with the Big Brother, Big Sister program. Guess what? Were the ones who graduated. The ones who did not have to go to the education department, the School of Education, which would allow people to be in with a 2.3 grade point average. Arts and science required a 3.0. That's what I was in. Okay, praise the Lord. So I always had a 3.0 or above. Ended up with about a 3.8, possibly in some cases a 4.1. But the point I'm making to you is that that's in spite of all the skullduggery done in the freshman year. But with that being said, and some of it will be covered here, the students from Mizzou were invited unblocked to Gary, Indiana. The agenda was to give input into the formation of a new, yes, national black political party. I wanted to say the year was 1972. It was very well organized as to the specifics of each aspect that was being formed and its agenda. The one thing I remember vividly is the sabotage by the Democrats from St. Louis, Missouri. You know, the same old handkerchief head stuff. I was shocked to see the party of my parents and grandparents be so divisive at such a time as this. There's no doubt that they asked for one more chance to represent the masses of black people. They were given that chance, and to my knowledge, there has never been another black political conference held since that time in 1972 or so. Very serious people there, including the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I remember him being there. The other most surprising thing that occurs was that most of the meetings or divisions, we were asked to perform a certain task and report to the team leader in order to maintain control. I do mean we were organized, but somehow, beside the sabotage, no one said a word anymore about a black political party, as I said earlier. Here's something here that is of note. I do remember being asked to denounce my citizenship. This was something that they did that did not ring well with me and did not feel right. And for that reason, I told them, heck no. If that's what it required, I'm gone. Many did renounce their citizenship, and I wonder where they are now. I wonder who was really behind that aspect of the meeting. Was it the FBI? I need to thank my street smarts for smelling a rat, especially after I saw a few people from the old Wesley House group who were teen leaders who were rather awkward trying to play a role as a black activist. I never saw Huey Newton or any of the Black Panthers in person between Kansas City, St. Louis, and Columbia, Missouri. I did see Rap Brown in person before his most recent incarceration in Atlanta for the alleged murder of an officer attempting to serve him in Atlanta. There was so much going on. The speech was videotaped, nevertheless, by a member of the media department at the Texas Southern University. And hopefully they still had that thing, and hopefully we'll all be able to see it one day. I got a lot out of his speech, and I really have not been without a camera ever since. Always carry it, and especially getting ready to videotape things. But I'm sorry that I don't have that tape to show you some of that, because that was quite a message. And basically the gist of it, I can remember him saying that he, for you to start to lead people, you need to be able to lead yourself. In order for you to make a change in yourself that is necessary to lead, in other words, to seek wisdom, you had to have a revolution within yourself before you could be talking about revolution. A very peaceful talk and a very realistic, practical talk. Real talk, as they say. I can say that Rap Brown, who was going by his name under Islam, emphasized that in order to participate in change for the people, here I go again, a change must happen inside the individual who is participating in the attempted change on the outside. To my knowledge, he was quoting a part of the autobiography of Malcolm X. It sounded good live, and I was to find the same basic understanding, in the 12-step program, explaining the fourth step's necessity and the need to be aware of being held hostage by one's instincts is something that can happen and should be avoided. This was my beginning and understanding about myself on the what? On the inside. It started with Rap Brown and was elaborated on in this 12-step program with the big book, with 12 and 12, in spite of all my attempts to self-medicate. And the next chapter I have here is a good start, and and post-traumatic shock, in addition to, in addition to sleep apnea, which I was trying to self-treat since then. Okay, I should have had a chapter on that alone, and I think I will write it. A good start in college without stinky thinking, A bad finish, forsaking my home training by doing as the Romans do, trying to be an Epicurean. The start of a free fall. It's page 87 in that original book. That is, again, unedited. Looks like it's unedited, but again, if I find a major error, I'll try to stop and elaborate and or change things as they are. When I was at the University of Missouri, Columbia, I began to treasure my spot as a student. It was from watching several of the black activists that I realized a dichotomy in the students in general. There was also the dialogue between myself and Miss Joanne Johnson, which was truth from a messenger from God. I want to go to Africa when I graduate to work, I said, and looking for support from my troops at the time. But you do not have anything to offer Africa, is what she said. That was the truth. But it did hurt at the time because I would need to finish my pre-med area with a minor in music and with little guidance from a quote-unquote counselor. There was little to guide us in a big, a big pond, with few little fish, which I was. I did not need a counselor to tell me that a degree in bid whist and hearts and our clubs could be something that would take me to Africa. There's certainly no doubt that it would not take me to Africa. And I would need an armamentarium of marketable skills in order to really offer Africa anything. And all that came to me as I was matriculating in, because this is what we were all trying to do. We're trying to get ready to go back to Africa. Well, at least to go back, not to stay, but to go back to contribute, possibly buy some land, go back and visit in an Afrocentric, and I say Pan-African sense. Okay? The upshot is that I got serious in my sophomore year after a year of taking my student spot for granted. The other part of that is that I began to realize where my bread was buttered. I began to realize that many people could have this spot. I began to realize that it was a blessing at being able to study in 1972 or thereabouts, where I was aware of many who would basically be very happy to get the spot. My coursework called for chemistry lab and more studies in biology. In addition, I took a course in piano and picked up the song from that piano, which I can still play today, theme from Valley of the Dolls, for those of you all who forgot how it went. Ba-dee-da-da, dee-dee-da-da, dee-dee-da, dee-doo-da. I always liked that song. And I play it with a C major 7 starting everything, and it made more sense as I got out to learn how to practically play it. I don't think it's written in C major. But anyway, I still play the song as I said earlier. My female teacher was so nice, and I made myself friendly to James Lake and his friend. He took me in as a mascot, more or less. I was really treated as a brother by James Lake, who later became a doctor and did his training at the Mayo Clinic. He was phenomenal at teaching himself, teaching me the necessity of staying up all night sometime to study, even if you had regular intervals of study before. Okay? He had he had a mnemonic memory devices that helped me, and that really helped me. Learning large lists of items necessary in biology and chemistry, and I will forget, in comparative physiology, especially organic chemistry. He had a good friend of his that I think it was actually his cousin. Looked like Mongolian cat. He was just like that. Looked like he's from another country. It was me who came up with the old stand flashcards with the questions on one side and the answer on the other. I didn't get that from him because we had sheets that we would use. But I did develop a flashcard system which allowed me to excel. I had to work harder for forsaking the group and easier for forsaking the drug. Later on, about 6 years later, James tried to get me to forsake my stupidity and give me big brother advice. To forget about being a quote-unquote player, trying to serve two masters, even though I had my wife's consent. I told him to mind his own business. Foolishly, this coupled with the time demands of residency, my wife's unrecognized postpartum depression, as well as a history of depression that I was unaware of, sent her into a very sharp Puerto Rican divorce attorney. There were a couple of other stupid things that I did, including keeping a running account of my attempts to withdraw myself from my affair and get a post office box for the business of Peters Productions, which was required an application which she saw. Now, that running account was where I was just being real. I was just keeping a diary, and she found a diary and read it. Okay, let me make it plain. But I think most of it was due to some subtle changes, like I said earlier in one of the other dictations, that I didn't even realize how much I had changed myself, chasing the wrong things. We were quick. Her friends, my wife, were quick to tell her of my philandering when they saw me out with my girlfriend one night. Both of the couples got divorced shortly after ratting on me, though. And one of the couples had a gay husband involved, come to find out later, whatever that means, which I was to find out years later. It was almost contagious as to how the infection spread after my divorce. I was not proud of my stupidity in following the advice of Mr. Iceberg Slim, and I sincerely, thought cost me my family. My road was paved and my bed was made by me. I had nobody to blame. I had to travel the road less traveled, as well as sleep in the bed. I am not proud of the sacrifices that my family was forced to endure due to my selfishness. There's little else to say about this, but I'm sorry to my ex-wife, Carla Peters, at that time, to my daughter, who now has children of her own. I'm sorry. I can say that a return to my vomit with the abuse of alcohol was at the root cause of me losing sight of purpose in going after preference. We're going to go ahead and stop the recording now. I think we've put enough on. And we thank you for your patience in moving forward. We thank the Lord for His grace and His mercy, because it's only by His grace and mercy we're allowed to live another day. So to be able to speak these words of apology, to be able to speak these words of confession, okay? And I hadn't realized I was that frank in there. And the more I read, the more frank I realized this statement is, and certainly will be made available to you So you can get the spicy parts, but maybe we'll throw this one in for free. So you can see what happens further on down the road, as Geometric says. Further on down the road, things are not as rosy as they are while you're in the middle of that thing. But anyway, without getting too verbose, thank you so much for your time, your trouble, and we love you. Ain't nothing you can do about it.